Welcome back. Christian support of Trump. I know a lot of you check that. Maybe some of you might be saying right now, why are you taking this on? Well, a guy who I like, who happens to be a frequent guest on this show, recently wrote a column by the title, Why a Bible-Believing Christian Supports Trump. And we're talking about Rod Thomson, of course, who describes his ongoing arguments with other Christians who disagree with him, who look at the number of times the president has been married, the allegations of harassment, his sometimes vulgar language, and his comments about women as the reason they don't support Trump. But Rod writes, quote, I understand the discomfort with his verbiage and the way he comports himself. Same here. It can really be distasteful to me, but how could that possibly be more important than what he is actually doing for the country? And joining us for more is Rod Thomson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, Reverend Russell Meyer, the Executive Director of the Florida Council of Churches, and another guy who I like and call a friend, and Frank Alcock, who is one of my best friends, a political science professor at New College. Hey, Rod, let me see if I got this correct. You told Adam it's not about what the president does in his personal life. It's about his ability to move the country forward. But a lot of people argue what the president's policies that he is pushing along would actually move the country back, not forward.
Right. Well, I disagree if we're looking at forward as equating to what's best for Americans. Because I think that we've mistaken the place and the role of the president in the country. He's the chief executive. He's meant to faithfully execute the laws of the land, which some have done better than others. Commander-in-chief appoints judges. You know, there's a handful of things that he's supposed to be doing. He is not supposed to be a moral leader, a spiritual leader, a father figure. He's not supposed to be a national emoter in times of catastrophe. I see no reason why we should have a president going after a hurricane and handing out water so he can show how he cares. I think that we put the president in the wrong role when we look at him that way. And so if we are looking at him for appropriate moral leadership, we are looking to the wrong places. We should be looking to pastors, reverends, priests, rabbis, imams, whatever your faith is. That's where you look for those things.
Let me ask you about this, because when you see Christian defense of President Trump, despite the allegations, the marriages, the language, and so forth, you know, on the other hand, a lot of people say, you know, there were a lot of people who openly questioned whether Barack Obama was a Christian. And that is, you know, no matter what you think of his policies, the man did not speak publicly in the same way that the president does. There's certainly no question about how he treated his wife and other women. And it does raise the issue about hypocrisy.
So, well, what it raises the issue to me is it goes exactly back to my point here. And that is that Barack Obama, in my estimation, he said he's a Christian. I leave it at that. I take him at his word. He seemed to me to be a loving father, a devoted husband, a good family man, an excellent example in that respect and all. I think he wasn't a good president for the country because of his policies. I would go further in the presidential comparisons to sort of buttress my case here to say that probably the most morally Christian president we've had in modern times is Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was a Bible teacher. I mean, evangelical. I mean, no. Basically, he believes exactly what I believe, as best I can tell. And Habitat for Humanity, he's been faithful with for decades afterwards. But it's also pretty universally accepted that he was really not a good president at all. Then when I go to, but wait, let me finish my point if I might. But I go to Bill Clinton. And so I like to stick with the Democrats here because it kind of makes the case. Bill Clinton, I think, was a morally reprehensible man. I think he was a sexual predator. I think just looking at Monica Lewinsky is nowhere near enough of the picture. When you look at all the various women, I mean, this is really not a moral man. In office, before office, I don't know about afterwards, but it doesn't sound like it. However, I don't think Bill Clinton was that bad a president. I would take Bill Clinton over Jimmy Carter or Barack Obama as president, despite my assessment that he is a morally inferior man personally than either of them.
How do you jive what you read in the Bible that Reverend Meyer was talking about and your support for President Trump?
Right. So this is a principled position now, regardless of who's president. Reverend Meyer was talking about in James chapter 2, where it says, look after orphans and widows in their distress. That's exactly right. That's exactly what Christians are supposed to be doing. If you look at the Sermon on the Mount, very high bar for all of us to be doing, turning the other cheek. When you look in Matthew, and yeah.
You can't say that this president, this man,
No.
turns the thank you.
Exactly the
Anyway.
point. But this is continuing on my point. I'm not claiming that Trump is a Christian. I'm not claiming he needs to act like a Christian. He needs to act like our chief executive, and that's what he needs to be doing. Is he needs to be a good president. But the other is aimed at us as individual Christians. Nowhere in the Bible will you find God telling or Jesus saying how we are to act as government. All right, so and what Reverend Meyer's saying and what the Unitarian pastor was saying on there, I'm a little bit surprised at how much we want to infuse running government with church and with church teachings and policies. I was thinking that we wanted to separate those two. But on the individual issues within the Scripture, he's right on the Psalms and teaching the kings, but if we go to Jesus' teachings, Jesus is all about the individual heart and where our heart is towards God, where our heart is towards fellow man. And so he asks us to feed the poor and to clothe the naked and to visit those in prison. And the reason he wants us to do that is because if there's a third party that can do it, we do not have to take responsibility individually for it.
That's the evangelical contortion of the
That's what the Scripture says if you read the Bible.
That's the evangelical